Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today. Look, if you're a focused learner trying to untangle some of the most commonly confused psychological buzzwords out there, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're taking a highly structured, visual deep dive into 4 massive concepts that totally govern human behavior and potential. And we'll be relying purely on the data to separate fact from fiction. So, right off the bat, are aptitude, attitude, and intelligence the exact same thing? Think about how frequently we mix up these terms in our daily lives, right? We might say someone has a bad attitude when really they're actually just struggling to learn a new concept. Or we might assume someone with quote-unquote high intelligence automatically has a high aptitude for absolutely everything. But as you'll see, treating these words as synonyms can severely limit our understanding of ourselves and honestly of everyone around us. Okay, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we're breaking down the foundational concepts. 1, the anatomy of attitude. 2, the essence of aptitude. And 3, testing and using aptitude. Once we've got a firm grip on those, we're throwing these ideas right into the ring for a direct comparison showdown. We'll look at 4, aptitude versus intelligence. 5, aptitude versus attitude. And finally, 6, aptitude versus interest. Let's get right to it. All right, jumping into section 1, the anatomy of attitude, more than just a mood. You know, we often think of an attitude as just waking up on the wrong side of the bed or acting like a teenager who is just asked to do chores. But fundamentally, from a psychological standpoint, an attitude is simply a tendency to respond towards a specific idea, object, person, event, or situation. It isn't inherently bad. It can be positive, negative, or completely neutral. To give this some real academic weight, consider this powerful quote from pioneering psychologist Carl Jung. He defined an attitude as a readiness of the psyche to act or react in a certain way. And what's absolutely fascinating about this readiness is that it can exist on 2 totally distinct levels. Attitudes can be explicit, meaning they're conscious beliefs that actively direct your daily decisions. But they can also be implicit. Those are the unconscious beliefs lurking way beneath the surface that still actively drive your behavior without you even realizing it's happening. To truly understand how this readiness works, we have to look at its structure. There are 3 core components of attitude. First is the cognitive component, which is basically your thoughts and beliefs about a subject. Second is the affective component, which indicates how that person or situation actually makes you feel. And third is the behavioral component, showing how the attitude ultimately influences your actions. So, the crucial takeaway here is that your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions all tightly intertwine to form one complete attitude. It's the whole shebang. That brings us perfectly to section 2, the essence of aptitude, your future potential. Now, if an attitude is all about your readiness and reaction to things, aptitude is an entirely different beast. It's fundamentally a product of both your heredity and your environment. By formal definition, an aptitude is an innate or acquired ability that helps an individual achieve proficiency in a particular field, assuming they're provided with appropriate education and motivation. Simply put, having a higher aptitude just means you have a much higher chance of success and much faster learning in a specific area. For instance, if you have an aptitude for languages, you're going to pick up Spanish or Mandarin way faster than someone else, even if you were both given the exact same instruction. Now, what's really interesting about this is how we can elegantly separate 3 words we constantly confuse by using a simple timeline of traits. Think about it like this. Skills refer to things you've already learned to do in the past. Abilities refer to the things you can successfully do right now, in the present. But aptitude? Aptitude refers to the things you can learn in the future. It is literally a measure of your future potential. Moving right along to section 3, testing and using aptitude, measuring the future. So if aptitude is all about future potential, how do educators, administrators, and employers actually measure a future that hasn't even happened yet? Well, we essentially use 2 broad kinds of assessments. First, we have specialized aptitude tests, and these are laser-focused to pinpoint specific talents. Think of mechanical tests, checking if you can comprehend tools and devices, musical tests, checking your rhythm and pitch, or scholastic and professional tests, checking your inclinations for studying law, medicine, or teaching. On the other hand, we have general aptitude tests, like the General Aptitude Test Battery. These don't just look at one thing. They use multiple sections to measure your overall fitness for a wide variety of activities through vocabulary, reasoning, arithmetic, and spatial relations. But why does measuring this actually matter? Well,
Look at the real-world applications. Instructionally, these tests help teachers modify their curricula to match their students' varying levels and, form realistic expectations. Administratively, it facilitates effective grouping of individuals and shows institutions exactly where to focus their resources. And from a guidance perspective, it's incredibly powerful. It helps individuals understand their own inherent strengths and weaknesses while helping parents and mentors develop highly realistic expectations.
All right, here we are, Section 4, Showdown 1, Aptitude versus Intelligence. We've laid all the groundwork, and now it's time for the climax of our explainer. We're going to do a rapid-fire, factual comparison to clear up the confusion between these terms once and for all. And we're starting with intelligence. Let's put them head-to-head. Intelligence is your general mental ability, and it has a really wide scope that influences all areas of your activities. Aptitude, however, is a specific mental ability with a much narrower scope. Intelligence indicates your present ability, while aptitude indicates your future performance. But here is the most fascinating assertion from our source material. Intelligence cannot be improved, whereas aptitude absolutely can be improved. That brings us to Section 5, which is Showdown 2, Aptitude versus Attitude. Now we're pitting our specific future potential right against our mental readiness to react. Let's move to the origins and see how this builds into an incredible contrast regarding their timelines. Aptitude always has an innate basis, and here's an absolutely crucial fact. Aptitudes are formed only up to puberty. On the flip side, an attitude has no innate basis whatsoever. It is entirely learned or adopted. And unlike aptitude, new attitudes can be formed throughout your entire life, even well into old age. Continuing with this comparison, let's look at their stability. Aptitudes, once they're established, are highly stable and they seldom change. In fact, as a pattern of behavior, an aptitude will never reverse completely within an individual's lifespan. You don't just suddenly lose a baseline aptitude for music, right? Attitude, however, is much less stable. Because it involves a complex organization of beliefs, habits, and motives, it's highly susceptible to change. And your attitude towards a specific subject may actually reverse completely over time. And finally, Section 6, Showdown 3, Aptitude versus Interest. Now, this is perhaps the most common misconception of all. The belief that just because you're deeply interested in something, it automatically means you have an aptitude for it. But here is the psychological reality. Aptitude is an intrinsic capability that is simply not related to your individual needs, your motives, or your instinctive drives. It's really not directly related to your emotions at all. Interest, on the other hand, is entirely directly related to your emotions, sentiments, desires, and instinctive needs. Interest is what naturally evokes your attention, whereas an aptitude does not necessarily evoke your attention at all. And this brilliantly illustrates our final, highly counterintuitive contrast from the source material. Aptitude is mostly innate, but it actually can be improved with targeted training. Interest is mostly acquired, it undergoes vast changes as you age, but critically, interests cannot be improved with training. Think about that for a second. You can train someone to improve their aptitude in mathematics, but you absolutely cannot train them to genuinely be interested in it. So as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this final provocative question. Are your current challenges a matter of innate aptitude, or are they simply a learned attitude? By using these precise psychological definitions we've explored today, you can start to better self-reflect on your own educational and professional journey. Are you hitting a wall because of an innate limit in your aptitude, or are you just struggling with a completely reversible attitude? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I will see you next time.